John says if subdomains in their primary domain page sites, if subdomains in their primary domains page sites have completely unrelated content, will this confuse Google and hurt primary domains SEO ranking? I don't think so, because Google treats subdomain sites as independent sites. So yes, you can inherit authority and strength from the domain, from the parent domain. I always consider subdomains as like children, right? So a subdomain is the child domain of a parent domain, the root being the parent. And then any other subdomains are siblings of each other, right? So I call those sibling subdomains. So like I said, Google treats each subdomain site as a standalone site. In other words, if you had a domain, like there's another question somebody was asking about Felling Pro coming up. So I'll just pull this one up. Okay. Felling.pro. All right. So this is the root domain, Felling.pro, but I have a bunch of subdomain sites, right? So Chester.Felling.pro, for example. Okay. So each one of these sites are the sites that I'm doing SEO stuff to, right? The subdomain sites is what I'm trying to rank, not the root domain. The root domain is for this project is nothing other than an index page. It's a directory page to help a visitor determine which site is most appropriate for them to go to, and then they go to the actual site by clicking on this here. If that makes sense. What I'm getting at is each one of these sites are treated as standalone sites by Google. So if a penalty were applied to Chester Felling Pro, for example, it would not affect Felling Pro, the root domain, or any of the sister or sibling subdomains. Like, in other words, Berkeley Felling Pro would not be affected if Chester Felling Pro was penalized by Google. Now, if Felling Pro caught a penalty, it would affect the root and all of its subdomains, because a penalty applied to a root domain affects the root domain, all of the inner pages and posts, any subdirectories that are created as part of the root domain, and any subdomains. All are affected by a penalty. So let's say the root domain gets de-indexed, the subdomains will too. Does it make sense? But on a subdomain site, it's isolated. A penalty as applied to the subdomain is isolated to that subdomain and that subdomain only. And so if you have different content on different subdomains, will that affect the root? I don't know. I mean, because I've not tested that, but I don't think it would. Because I have seen, like, for example, maybe, you've got a site, a root domain that's about something or another, but then you have subdomains for different topics, right? So you have a different, maybe it's gardening dot whatever the root domain is. So, and then on that particular subdomain, it's all stuff about gardening. And then maybe that's home improvement subdomain. You know what I mean? So I don't know that it's going, because I've not done any specific testing with it, but my assumption is it would be no, it would not affect it, because each subdomain site is treated as its own site. That's clear. Okay.